Well, hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. We're in season 6, which feels fantastic. You've heard me say that before. I'm going to continue to say that again because it's like a pinch me moment that we're still doing this thing. And we have a long list of guests still booked for 2025. And our next guest came to us through the power of LinkedIn. We share a couple of, we might have a man crush on Mike Weinberg. Sorry, Mike, we made you laugh or made you blush, but we both are buddies with Mr. Weinberg. His name is Matt Ferguson. He's a golfer. He's a dad. He's got years of sales expertise. He's coaching and helping companies all around the United States from speaking or through his programs. But more importantly, that's not why we're having him on. We're having to have Matt on the podcast today because we want to learn about Matt the dad and how he's working hard to become the ultimate quarterback or leader of his home. So without further ado, Mr. Ferguson, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thanks for having me. I've listened to several episodes and I'm a big fan of this.
Oh, very cool. I appreciate you saying that. Well, then if you know what's coming next, we always start out each episode with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
Just my two kids. I never wanted to be a dad, in true honesty. And I told you that before that we got on the show. I was the oldest of 4 boys. I don't know why I didn't want to be a dad, but it's probably the worst single thought that I've ever had, because every day that I've had a kid since August 11th, 2020, I can't believe that I actually thought that. And of the four boys, I was the oldest and I was the last one. I was actually the last one to have a kid.
Why do you think you had that thought?
I don't know. I've heard other people that were like the oldest of siblings, just because like growing up, and I live in a great community. I live in a middle class home, but I think I got to see more of some of the struggles my parents had just raising 4 boys.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I just want to be on my own, and I don't want that responsibility. I literally think that's might be what it was. And it's actually funny how that changed. And I give you a million guesses and you'd probably never guess it, but we can get into that now, or we can get into that later. I'll let you decide.
Let's hold, because I got to do my gratitude, and then we got to go into you, but then I want to get back to that. So don't forget to talk about that.
Got it.
So what I'm most grateful for is I have a son in college. For some of those that follow me know me, and I have a junior in high school, a daughter who's a high school basketball player. But she's more than that. She's talented young woman. I'm excited to see what she does. But what I'm grateful for is I have a great relationship with my son, and I remember, like, when I went to college, I wasn't calling my mom and dad every day. Sometimes you make the bad decisions. You get into that freshman year, like, yeah, it's partying 4 nights a week. That sounds like a good idea, And then, but my son, he's got a serious girlfriend, and I got on Snapchat thanks to Brad Rosen. Shout out to you, Brad. Like, I would never thought I'd be on Snapchat, but like, that's how we communicate. So I'm like, we got a snap streak, which I learned about that. And I just love that it's not like he has to call dad, and he wants to call mom and dad. And we've all the hard work between they were younger to where they're at now. It's so fulfilling as a parent to see the stage of like where we're at with our kids. And I'm just grateful that my son likes to call dad and likes to check in and, hey, send me pictures of the dog when you're working out, and he, like, whether it's having a good day or bad day, I'm grateful that we have open lines of communication, because that's like, you just want them happy.
I'll throw something there. I graduated high school in 98. What year did you graduate?
94.
Okay. I thought you were around 94, 95. So you were in the age of when you went to school. I played college football for a couple years myself.
Okay.
And when you went to school, you had to buy, do you remember this? Maybe you didn't, but I had to buy calling cards. And I had to put in the codes with the calling cards and be like, hey, you have 200 minutes. And, one of the interesting things now is that I live in Phoenix, Arizona. My whole entire family lives in Cleveland, Ohio. But like, we talk all the time, text all the time. And like, the technology and video and everything almost makes it like it's not even a big deal to live that far away. Like, I can't go to Sunday dinner, but like, they call me if it's somebody's birthday and they sing. So it's great that it's so much easier to communicate now.
That's That is circa for the older dads. When Maddie talked about the calling card, I mean, that was my parents used to give me gifts because my wife we went to separate colleges,
Yeah.
so we'd maximize the how many then it went to mobile to minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, don't call me because I only have 84 minutes left.
Yeah. And I'll never forget my youngest brother. We all kind of got phones. I can't remember when everybody got cell phones, but it was kind of in early 2000s. And he was texting, and then like there was text plans where if you went over the minutes, and like he had, I'll never remember the number, but we were like, how could you send 250 texts? Now you send that in probably, half a day.
Right. Well, even like this is even dating ourselves, since this is going completely random, but did you ever have the old school like brick phone?
Well, no, but you're talking about the Nokia phone, I think.
I'm talking about the big ass white
No,
one.
not that was more 90s phone, I would say. I did not have that.
So my dad, rest in peace, my dad was like the OG. He worked for Whirlpool for 30 years, sales guy, rocking the Oldsmobile station wagon, just disorganizes all shit, like papers all the place. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing back here? But when I took the Oldsmobile, and this thing could like turn on a dime. It was like, Marshawn Lynch, like Ghost Ride the Whip, like that thing could turn. So had a nice little bass in their thing. So I'm rocking that bad boy, go to my girlfriend's house at the time, now my wife. And my dad had his big brick phone. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call my girl. So did not know it was like $70 million a minute. And my dad's like, what the Sam's shit are you doing? I'm like, sorry, Dad, didn't know.
That's great.
Boy. Okay, so we're already off the rails.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back in. Tell me about the Ferguson squad. Who's in the huddle, and tell me how your wife met.
Me and my wife met on a blind date.
Okay.
And it was through mutual friends, and we just went on a date. Went out. It's actually St. Patrick's Day, so it might have been 2017. This year will be our 5th wedding anniversary because we got married in 2019. My oldest daughter is 4 years old. She was born in 2020, and then my youngest son, my only son, was born last year, 12/22/23. So you almost can't even forget that date. So he was a Christmas baby. So there's 4 of us, and then we have kind of how I got in. Going back to what I said, we have what I thought I would never have is 2 cats. I lived in this apartment building and had a crazy neighbor that was right next to me, and he would ask me to take care of his cats. I actually was scared to death of cats. I hated cats. But he had the coolest cat. And I was like, I'm a single guy. Like this doesn't seem like it's that hard. Like I wonder if I could find a cool cat like this. And I had these acquaintances that were boyfriend, girlfriend that lived with these 3 cats. They broke up and then they had to get rid of the 3 cats. I saw it on Facebook. Took one of the cats and then decided, oh, this is pretty cool. Maybe, I'd like to have kids someday. So a cat actually changed my mind of if I wanted to have kids or not. And I still have that cat to this day.
How old's the cat?
The cat now, I got him when he was 7. So he's probably, I think he's around 14 or 15. The second cat showed up on our porch about last summer. You're actually catching me on a heck of a day, especially talking about parenting and that, because we had the cat get neutered yesterday. So he's got a cone around his head. My youngest son woke up at 3:30 in the morning and didn't go back to bed till 9. So, it's all those stuff that I'm sure you look back on and you probably miss those days because everybody says it goes so fast. And just by, my daughter being 4, it's crazy how fast it goes.
Dude, I remember, it's funny, I was playing golf this past weekend. Me and my good buddy named Darren, I think it was episode 9 or 10. And we were talking to a younger dad and just about like the journey of, all the cliches are true. It goes way too fast. And you get so wrapped up in the moment because we're competitive people. But in the end, none of it really matters. What matters is, are they happy? Are we helping them find what they want to do? Not what you think they want to do, not what you want them to do, but just because all it does is, when I've not been my best parent, your anxiety goes through the roof. You're trying to have these expectations that don't exist. And then you just create more stress for yourself. You put actually accidental pressure on your family.
Right.
But the beautiful thing is like admitting that out loud. I hope I'm speaking to another dad. Like, shit, as much as I do this podcast for you guys, everybody, I do it for me selfishly. It's free therapy, and it's just a way to like stay grounded and focus on doing what, just trying to be a better version of me. And I still remember a neighbor who lived 4 doors down from me that when my son was 8 weeks old, 6 weeks old, had him in the baby Bjorn, whatever, maybe 6 weeks old. And I'm walking, she's like, man, goes fast. I'm like, he's like 6 weeks old. What are you talking about? Now he's 18 in college. And I remember that yesterday. So yeah, man, enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Well, I think what you do in this podcast is so cool because like all podcasts, like, and I run into it too. Like I'll be on a podcast and like I'm talking about the same things over and over again, saying things differently, but it's sales management and it's sales leadership, right? And I think one of the cool things about this is that years later, my kids will be able to listen to it, and like everybody that you've ever done this will be able to, their kids will be able to listen to it.
You there?
Freeze?
Hello?
Shit. Yeah, what happened?
I don't know.
It says
You
I went
froze.
offline, but I'm in a pretty good spot. Where'd you lose me?
Right when you said, what's really cool about being on this podcast is my kids.
Do you want me to just pick it up?
Pick it up right where you have.
Okay. I think what's really cool about your podcast is my kids will be able to listen to this someday and think about all the podcasts that you've done. Like all those kids and your kids will be able to listen to this. Like that's a cool, that's just a great thing to have. The other podcast that I'm on, they probably won't listen because it's sales management and they'll think it's boring and they'll be like, well, that's what you do. We don't really care.
Well, that's what's funny about. I appreciate you saying that. I had my kids on. I'm sure you know if you listened to a few. Like they did the intro, and so they were. That was when my daughter was like in 7th grade. My son's in 9th, and it's funny to hear their voices then,
Yeah.
and that they are now. And I've thought about sometimes having my kids on one time, like maybe interviewing them. I just don't know if they'd ever want to do it, but so anyway, my son now he sent me a text or snap message. And it was a picture of my book. He goes, hey, I'm going to read this Tools book. You know this guy? You smart ass. I'm like, why? You're in college. I said, it'll make a lot more sense. But there's a first part of the page that said, I dedicate it to him. And it was like kind of a nostalgia moment. But like, when your kids realize, hey, maybe my dad's not as big as a tool as I once thought. Maybe I might be able to learn something from him. And that's where the stage of what we're at. He still likes to make fun of me and hit it farther than me on the golf course, which is not fun. But okay, so oldest of 4. Talk about what was life like growing up for you, and tell me a little bit about mom and dad.
Dad was a stud. Matter of fact, he played football at Youngstown State. His quarterbacks were Ron Jaworski and Cliff Stout, who between them played in the NFL for I don't know how many years. He actually tried out for the Buffalo Bills, so he was there 2 weeks. He was a wide receiver. And the funny thing is he sent these video clips probably about 2-3 weeks ago that somebody sent him on YouTube. And it was him. He had like 5 catches and 135 yards in the first half. And the YouTube, I was like, I never thought you really play. This is the first I ever saw highlights of you. So that was my dad, who was a great athlete. My mom, they were high school sweethearts. Grew up in a small town in Ohio. My mom was a night nurse, so she worked at hospitals all growing up, and I can still remember her going to work, at night, and then coming home in the morning to find us. My whole upbringing was sports. I mean, basketball, football, baseball, you named it, I played it. Growing up, I was always like top player, best player that there was, which I look back and thought about how much that meant to me. And then when you look back and like, did it really mean that much? Like to your point, like what does all this matter? But I think what it taught me was, being competitive and, always wanting to win. Um, and, it's funny. I think what I find in the most competitive people, especially in sales, right? You're always looking for college athletes competitive. You're probably like this is my guess, is that it's not the winning that's that great. It's the losing that drives you absolutely insane. And then when you win, it's like, oh, that's cool. Let's go do it again. So growing up, being the oldest, you could ask my brothers. I was probably hard to deal with. Kind of hard on them. Typical older brother in the Midwest, probably. But love all my brothers, and um, you know, that's kind of how it was. It was all sports all the time. It's funny whenever my wife, like her and my daughter, be watching some TV show, right? And my daughter or my wife will be like, "Have you ever seen this?" It'd be some like old cartoon or something. I'm like, "No, I don't think so." She's like, "What did you watch when you were growing up?" I'm like, "I watched Georgetown, Syracuse. Like, I love Sherman Douglas and Derek
Oh
Coleman."
yeah,
You remember
sure.
those games? Like, I can still remember being in the living room watching those games with the hoop up and shooting. But that's kind of what it was like in my family growing up. My dad always coached me. Probably around sixth, seventh grade, we got a little rocky, and hey, maybe you shouldn't coach me anymore because typical dad was hard on me. But I got a lot of good life lessons out of all that.
What did your dad do for work?
Oh, he has his still to this day. He's got his own interior decorating company, so he does painting, wallpapering, indoor. So I like to say I've had a paintbrush in my hand since I was about 5 years old.
There you go.
Most, in summers when all my friends were going to the beach and that, I was on the side of a garage scraping and painting a thing. I'd be like, "Is this even legal? We're not 18. Should we be working like this?"
It's just legal. Tell me what you learned from those experiences.
Um, just like hard work and work ethic, really. You know, like everything that I've ever had has been earned. Like nothing's like ever been like given to me. Like I can remember even in sales, in sales sometimes like every once in a while you get a break or somebody closes some huge deal and then it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I got that commission. I didn't even do that much for doing that. Like that's actually nice. But like for me, it's always just been work ethic. And like growing up, like my dad and my mom worked nights, worked 12-hour shift, and my dad went to work every day. And it seemed like he worked weekends all the time, and would take us to work. But like, I think that was just like ingrained in us almost, almost to the point now where like it's tough. I have my own business and it's like I study a lot of stuff on the brain and the consciousness and things like that. But like I still always have in the back of my mind is like I got to do this to get that. Um, but that's a good thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, back to your comment about losing. I remember, so in college, we would do on Thursdays, we would do 2 minute offense
Yeah.
against number one offense, number one defense. And it was shoulder pads and helmets, which, so this is me being excused. My defensive buddies are going to call me out for, but I'm sorry, it's legit. So if I could get touched, then I was down. And so linemen couldn't block as well as I could without leg pads on because you're not going to blow a guy's knee out and shoulder pads and helmet. But it was still super competitive. Defense would usually win most of the time. But and so I would end up being pissed on Thursdays from like 4:45 until 10:30 or 11. So mad that my buddies beat me. And the days we would win, it was like the best day ever. But like you're right, the losses drive you way more nuts than the wins, because the wins is what you expect. That's why you're prepared. That's why you do the little things that just talk the practice.
So you brought up basically being in shells, right? Helmet and shoulder pads. And I'll never forget, I go to play college football, right? Division 3. And but people say, oh, Division 3, but
It's still
Division 3 is
football.
still pretty damn good. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing that always shocked me in D3 was like the corners would just come up and like knock somebody's head off, right? Like you're just not used to that in high school. But what always shocked me was we would be in shells and I'd be like, all right, finally we get kind of a break here, and it was like still full go. I'm like, why don't we just have full pads on? Somebody is going to get hurt out here.
Right. Yeah, but that's what makes it fun. It's like the same grittiness your parents taught you. The D3, you have a little chip on your shoulder. I was a D2 guy, chip on my shoulder. You never feel like you've arrived. Even now as an entrepreneur, because I don't know about you, but I didn't mean to do what I'm doing now, man. This thing found me. Okay, so mom's a night nurse. You got three brothers, probably WWF all the time in your house. I can imagine. Cage matches and Ric Flair.
That's pretty much how it was. Yes.
Perfect. Dad's interior design. So you've seen from a early age what hard work looks like. So he laid. Your both parents laid the foundation. Besides hard work, tell me what were other values that were instilled in you, and maybe a story that could back some of those values up.
Man, good question. I always think here's a great story, and this just popped to me. So we put an addition on our back porch. We turn our back porch basically into like a family room, and the construction gets done, and my dad's papering, and then I'm painting the wall above the chair rail. Okay, I'll see if I can remember what exactly happened here, but you'll get the gist of the story. And he tells me, my dad, still to this day, tints paint. So he's amazing with color, right? So think about it. I don't know if you've ever went to Sherwin-Williams or something, but you pick your color and then you put it, in the thing, and it's all machine based, and they put the tint in, and they shake it and everything. But my dad had his own tints. And he was constantly like messing and changing colors, and he was really good with colors. Well, when we painted the ceiling, he had some tint in it, so it wasn't just white. And he said to me, he goes, whatever you do, don't hit the ceiling, because I don't have any paint left for that, and I don't want to have to match it, right? Because he wouldn't be able to match it and hit it. So of course, what happens? I hit the ceiling. I take the roller too close and hit the ceiling. I think I hit it twice. So he comes in and he said, I told you not to hit the ceiling. And I'm like, I didn't hit the ceiling. And he's like, I'm going to give you one more chance to answer that, because you're the only one that could have hit the ceiling. You're the only one at painting to tell you didn't hit the ceiling. And I said, I didn't hit the ceiling.
Oh boy.
And he had just went to I'll get it wrong, but it was some kind of parenting thing, right? I forget exactly what the message was. He's like, there's kids that get caught with their hand in the cookie jar and they apologize for it. And then there's kids that get their hand in the cookie jar and they get caught red-handed and they say their hand is in the cookie jar. And I felt, to this day, I still feel bad about, hitting the ceiling and lying. But I would say like the trust that I lost by doing that, because he basically came back and said like, hey, I can't trust you because I know you hit it and like all this stuff. But I always think, actually, my LinkedIn post today was about, lying during the sales process. And like, if you allow your team to lie and then they're top performers because they can lie, then everybody else sees it. And like, you're creating a culture of like non-credibility. I would say just being trustworthy and credible and like believable. Like that was a huge lesson I learned. I think I was around a freshman in high school then. But to answer your question, being trustworthy and credible, like which is what I think is some of the biggest things in sales, would be something else that I learned. Honesty.
Do you remember when you earned his trust back?
No, because I'll be honest. I was kind of like an asshole, in high school. I was like an athlete, and like I just kind of was, and it probably took me a while, to gain his trust and credibility back. But I can't. I'd have to ask him because it probably took me a while.
You should. That'd be good. That'd be good. I love that. So that's what's fun about this. Is like I'll ask people stories and the stuff will pop in their head. And that's kind of fun sometimes giving people homework if they accept it, because then it just creates like an amazing conversation. Your dad will probably laugh his ass off at the story and forget about it. Um, as you think about, so trustworthy, being credible, the hard work, that led you into college football. And then you got into the golf industry.
So my dad actually hated golf. He still hates golf to this day. He plays in an outing like once a year. My grandfather, though, played golf and was like the worst athlete. He was terrible. Like if he shot, between 90 and 100, that was really, really good for him. But like he would take me and my brother and we would play, and like I fell in love with golf. And my sophomore year in college, I took a hit on my shoulder, and it just like I hurt my shoulder. And like I didn't really love college football, and I didn't love playing anymore, and I just didn't. I was like, I hurt my shoulder. Like finish out my sophomore year, I'm like, I don't really want to do this. Honestly, I don't want to really play anymore. And D3 that summer, I was like, I'm decent at golf, but like I probably can't play college golf. So I called the coach and I was like, hey, can I try out? Can I come try out? And he's like, sure, you can come try out. So that summer, pre-internet basically, although there was internet in like 2000, but not great. I would get like Golf Digest magazines and read these tips, and like I kind of was self-taught. I was pretty good. In college, I shot anywhere from mid 70s to 80s, but that was like good enough to be like the fifth or sixth guy on that team back then, which probably not even close. But I played college for my second 2 years. When I got out, I played a ton of golf then, and I decided to get into the golf business. And I was in the golf business for about 7 years before I got.
I lost you. All of a sudden.
Okay, my back.
There we go. Yep. So you said played 7 years.
But I was in the golf business for about 7 years. Yep.
Okay. What? And then tell me what made you say, hey, maybe this is not my path. I want to get into sales now.
Well, here's the thing about the golf business is that there is not a ton of great jobs. And truthfully, I was in an unbelievable spot. I was at the Mirabelle Club in Scottsdale for one of the top club pros in the country. And, if I continued to do what I was doing, I'd probably get a job, right? Like a head job, a good job somewhere. But what I noticed from those 7 years in the club business is all it takes is one member to turn against you or something stupid to happen, and then it's like you're out, And I'm like, there's only so many $150,000, $250,000 jobs. And by the way, I wasn't even looking to get out. Like I said, I was in a good spot. But one of my still to this day, one of my good friends, I text with him all the time. He was working for a company called Career Builder, and he was a member at my club in Cleveland. They were coming out to Vegas for the NCAA tournament, and I think they were doing some work stuff. And I'm a 4-hour drive, so he's like, "Hey, do you want to come meet us?" So I go meet them, and they're talking about, like, it was his boss talking about how much money he made. I was like, "Geez, do you make that much money?" I was like, "This seems like a lot." I'm a first assistant. I'm making 50, 60 grand a year at one of the top clubs in the country. So he was like, "Well, the funny thing is he's coming out to take over the Phoenix office. Why don't you go interview?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about sales." Casey, I'm not joking. I go down there, meet with his boss. Then he has me meet with 2 hiring managers. The interview, I still remember the interview. They were like, "All right, if you want the job, you have it." And I'm like, "You guys haven't even really asked me anything." They're like, I'm like, "I don't even know anything about sales. Like, are you sure I can, do this?" And they go, "Well, with the references that you have, we'll take you in a second, and you teach golf. So you sell, you don't even know it. Right?" And I was like, "All right." So I thought about it for a while, and I'm like, "All right, let's do it." So do that. About 3 months into the job, I have no clue what I'm doing. Training was awful. I have no clue. I see the guy that moved out, his boss, packing up his office. I was like, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm packing up. I'm going to go work for LinkedIn." I'm like, "Oh." I'm like, "Well, that's not good." And about 2 weeks after that, it was around Halloween. I'll never forget that day. It was a Friday. HR and a bunch of people from corporate came in, and a bunch of us got called into the basement. VP of sales walks in. I'll never forget these words. He goes, "A lot of you look nervous, and you should be." I'm like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" I had actually just sold a deal, so I was like, "I'm sure I'm safe." And he's like, "Nobody in this room has a job here. Now you still have a job with the company. You just have to go to Atlanta or Chicago." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going there. If you want your severance, you can take your severance." That was my introduction to sales. Now, it turns out to be the best thing that happened to me, because then a startup company picked me up and I was there for 5 years, and the rest is kind of history. But that was kind of my journey from golf into sales. But, at that point, I was like, man, maybe I should go get back into golf. I don't know.
It's funny you said, my triggered a story. It's one of my the club I belong to. I've been there for like almost 10 years. No, yeah, 10 years actually. And then one of our first assistants came, Tyler, young dude, great guy. And when my son was like, call it 7th, 8th grade, he was thinking about doing something different. I said, "How about this?" He's like, he asked me, like, "Would you ever like help me?" I said, "How about this? Why don't you give my son free lessons, and I'll give you free business kind of mentorship." He's like, "All right."
Yep.
And then like 6 months later, the guy ends up leaving, and he was like, "I just don't know anything about sales." I go, "Yeah, you do. 360 people's names. You're kind. You follow up with people. If people order grips, you follow up with them. If people order clubs, you follow up with them. You make them feel special every time they walk into the shop." I go, "That's selling. You're just
Right.
building relationships, dude. You just don't even know it." So like, same thing. You didn't know you're selling, but you were. You know.
It's a crazy thing. And I think sales people have such a bad rap, because all you're really trying to do is see if you can help people solve a problem that they're having. I mean, that's literally, and like how you draw out that problem is how much you care about them and how much you trust you. And the more you can do that, the better you are. But like, is somebody could be good or not. And most people could be.
They just it's mindset. I mean, like a lot of sellers, they lack belief, or they lack and these are
Yep.
like life lessons that like sports taught me and my parents taught me. And now I love just helping my kids or other kids I work with. Like, just if you believe in yourself to start the day, and even in sales, if you believe in the product or service you sell when you start the day, and you focus on that, like, you're going to be better than most.
Yep.
And just, but to me, that goes back to like the habits, discipline, things you probably learned from your parents. And um, so as you think about your journey as a dad, 2 young kids, tell me, what are they maybe answer the same or the different, are there core based on how your wife was raised from her parents, or is there like, hey, these are the Ferguson must-haves, or these are the values that are most important to us? Have you guys slowed down to think about what's most important in your family?
I was the oldest of four. She was the youngest of three girls. So think about that. Oldest of four boys, youngest of three girls. um, have I thought about that? You know what's funny? Have you seen the Book of Manning? I'm sure you have. With
Um,
it's Peyton and Eli, but it's how they grew up with their dad.
no,
Oh
I
my
gotta
god,
see
you
it.
should you should
It's
watch this.
what's it called,
It's called the Book of Manning. I think it's a 30 for 30 on
dude? Yeah,
ESPN.
I'm
I
gonna
can't believe you haven't seen it, but
yeah watch it tonight.
you'll let me know after you see it.
Oh my
But Archie Manning's dad, I think I have this right. Archie Manning's dad actually committed suicide when he was at, I think, right before Ole Miss, or maybe between one of his summers. Okay. And what Archie said that all his dad really wanted him to do, and I hope I'm getting this right, but it's somebody said this to somebody, was, I just want you to be a good guy. And like, when I think about that, and I've seen it a bunch of times, but that really sat with me. I probably saw it like 2, 3 months ago. But like, if my kids just grew up to be like good people, like that's kind of all that matters. And like, I just thought that was so like interesting. You'll watch it and you'll know. You probably send me a message and you'll be like, oh my god, that's it, right? But I think, obviously you want them to work hard and do good and do that. But I want them to do what they want to do, right? And I just want them to be good people.
It's it might sound cliche to people, but when you actually slow down to really truly believe what Matt just said, I think that's gold. Um, we want outside. I mean, I want a good employee. I want a good husband, a good wife. I want someone that says, "Man, he or she is." They ask great questions, and I can always count on them. Or man, he makes me laugh. Uh, Not like, God, what a douche. That guy's a complete fool. You know. And like, a lot of these things come down to choices. It's this the old cliche advice. Yeah, the things you have control in life is attitude and effort. You either can say, oh, whatever, or you can really believe it and focus on it and make those thoughts turn into things in a positive way, which changes how we show up, changes how we. And trust me, everybody, I know the parenting journey is hard, and when you're in it, lack of sleep tonight, this, but I mean, for me, I was tired for like 10 straight years, but complaining about it's not going to solve anything.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, one of the things my fam, like my dad's always reading. Like he gets up and reads in the morning, and he sends text messages either from Daily Stoic or from whatever he's reading, and it like goes back and forth. But I think the more you read and like actually work on yourself, the more it actually like sets in over the years where you don't like lose it as much. Because I'm like short tempered, but I like to think that I'm better than I used to be, and I think that comes with age. But one of the phrases that I love, my youngest brother says it all the time, which is, I don't have to do it, like I get to do it. And like with your kids and how fast everything goes, I think like I constantly am reminding myself, like even this morning, I'm like, God, this guy's up at, you ruined my whole morning. I get up at 5. Um, I read for a little bit. I write my post, right? And then he's up early and now I got him. But I'm like, no, I get to, spend time with him. He was in a good mood and it was actually great. But like, it's so easy to get frustrated and pissed off all the
Well,
time.
yeah, it's a choice. It's a
Yeah.
choice, man. And as hard as that is to say, you do have a choice. And when you can change your mindset and embrace that difficulty of the kind of embrace the suck, as sometimes people say, like you'll be better for it. Now you have a story to share with somebody.
Right. I mean, when you look at all the crap that's going around in the world, especially like in California right now, like, is it, do we really have it that bad? No, we couldn't have it better.
No, if you had to say, like, let me put you on the spot here, see if something pops in your mind for the story. Tell me the best or most impactful parenting advice you've ever got so far.
You know what? That's a good question. I honestly think it might be the cliche of like how fast it goes and like to try to enjoy like the little moments. And everybody says that. Like it's like, oh, another person telling me that when I'm about to have my first kid. But honestly, like if you can stop, like especially in the frustrating times, which they're frustrating times all the time. Like my wife works Sundays because she does hair, so she works Sunday. So I have the kids on Sunday, and like it's just it's a zoo.
Like a Hell's Angel rally.
Oh my god, it's like my my dad me over Thanksgiving, like because my son Rafa just started walking like right over Thanksgiving,
Oh boy.
and my parents and my nephews were in town, and it was me, my dad, and my two nephews in the backyard with Rafa. All the girls went shopping, so we had him for probably like 2-3 hours. At one point, he had just started walking. I watched him, and I was watching him. He walked in my back patio, through the living room, out the front door, down the sidewalk, down the other sidewalk. Now I'm following him the whole time, but like I'm like, then he's in the backyard and he's over here. And about 2 hours in, my dad goes, well, if somebody asks us how many people it took to watch us, it took every damn one of us to make sure we didn't lose it. But like, that's the stuff, like, I'll never forget like those 2 or 3 hours because it's like me, my dad, my two nephews. Like, that probably never happen again with my son. But I was listening to it was Ryan Holiday and James Clear, the guy that wrote Atomic Habits. I'm sure you've read both those guys. And James Clear was talking, I think it was James Clear was talking about like the little moments you have like in the grocery store when you're waiting in line, like what's your default setting? Like, and he's like, well, most people's default setting is to get their phone out and scroll on their phone. But like that hit me like with my kids when there's like 10 or 15 minutes with them where it's like, oh my God, was my wife going to get home or not? But to try and like be grateful and have gratitude for those moments because it's just like you're sitting there and your son's in college, and I've heard you talk about your son and him coming home for the holidays and you having to drop him back off, and like I know that's going to be here before I know it, and like I'm just like grateful like for every moment that I had. And one thing that I'll add about my family is that my one of my younger brothers died. It'll be 4 years ago in March, and I, he has three young kids, and I think about that and how just grateful I am to have every day that I have with my kids. So, you know, it's just stuff like
Wow.
that. Like you don't know when it's going to be over.
Sorry, man. If you don't mind me asking, what happened?
Yeah, he actually is a D2 offensive tackle. He was an academic All-American. Like he was a stud, 6'3", 300 pounds. And he had some heart issues, and he had some heart issues. Kind of had this operation kind of 3 years before he went down. He had lost a bunch of weight. I think he got down to like 240, 250. And then one day he was sled riding with his kids, and one of the kids went down and kind of wrecked, and he grabbed them and he banged his eye up. So he ran him to the car, and then he collapsed at the car, and kind of was on life support for a week and then pulled the plug. So yeah,
Jeez.
something I hope nobody ever has to go through, but you
Yeah.
know, it's just he's something I think about. And that sign behind me that you'll almost see in any video that I'm in was a Post-it note that his wife found in his car, which is small wins equals big wins. And the more that I've thought about that Post-it note, I've kind of based my whole business on you know the small consistent stuff that you do every day, no matter what that is, sales, life, business. Like that's the stuff that, adds up and actually means something. So that's kind of the story of, all that.
What's your brother? What was your brother's name?
Drew.
Drew. Rest in peace, Drew. That's gold. Small wins equals big ones. I love that. That speaks to me because I do sweat the small stuff. People say don't. I disagree. I think when you sweat, I'm not saying sweat it and freak out like Will Ferrell and old school, but like sweat the small stuff. Like the details matter, and the details separate the good, the great, and the elite. And
Yep.
just like anything in life, from parenting to bus drivers to teachers to salespeople, there's always another level, right? And I'm on like this mindset of like I want to meet the best dad out there and learn from him. And what are they doing that I'm not, that I can change my game to be better tomorrow? And the other thing that you mentioned that made me think of, how time goes by so fast. One of the best pieces of advice I got is the days are long, but the years are short.
I knew where you were going. That is like, I'll never forget the first time I heard that. It was right as COVID started. And I was working for this company that everything then turned into, I mean, it was Zoom meetings from 7 in the morning until 6. It was unbelievable how many Zoom meetings there were. And I'll never forget, this girl was like, you know what they say, the days are long and the years are short. And like, I'll never forget that. And it's so true.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like the cliches are there for a reason because they're lessons and they're learning to, if you still slow down to embrace them. Um, Tell me about an area, Matt, of your dad game where, if you feel vulnerable to share, like, God, it's not where I want to be, but I'm going to commit to getting better, and I can lead my witness if you want. Mine was always patience. I work hard on patience. Maybe I'm stealing your thunder.
Same. I,
Yeah,
I I catch myself all the time, especially with my 4 year old, because the 1 year old has an excuse. Like he's clueless. Uh, I'm always I'm always in a hurry, no matter what. And where I catch myself all the time is, one of my favorite things to do every day. So my daughter goes to preschool, kindergarten, whatever you want to talk about it. She goes every day, and it starts at 8:45. And I have an ultra I have a clock in my head, and I just know what time it is, and I know where we are in the morning process in order to get it. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she doesn't care about time for any. Like this morning, it's 8:29, and I got everything ready, and I hear, oh, we got to do her hair, and we got to do this, and we got to do that. I'm like, oh, we're late, you know. But like, my favorite thing to do is to take her to school. And like, let's be honest, it does not matter if she gets there at 8:45 or 8:48, and that's kind of like the thing. But I'll catch myself and be like, "Get in there, strap the thing, what are you doing?" And my wife gives me shit. She's like, "How about you take a breath? Is it that big of a deal?" And I'm like, it's probably really not, but I like to be.
yeah. It's easy, man. But like now, in 10 years from now, hopefully she'll be like, "Yo, now I know why Matt was doing that because we got to be on time later, right?" In this age, maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but um, for me, like my dad, rest in peace. My dad passed away December 29th, 2021, and he used to always drop the biggest goddammits at me. And I'm looking at a picture right now. I'm like, sorry, Pop, throwing under the bus here, buddy. But they were hilarious. Like, and they would make us laugh because they were so intense. And it was like a musical instrument of a staccato, which is like a sharp note. He could, just God damn it, Casey. And we would start laughing. And then he would get more pissed. And I know people have told me about this before, but I never wanted to do that to my kids. Like, and there's so much that my dad did was just fantastic, but I never so I'd have not swore at my kids. The thing I've learned throughout this journey of interviewing almost 300 dads is we're never going to be our best, but when you aren't your best, teacher, go apologize. And which is not only it's great for you as a dad to get it out of your body, but you're teaching your kids something without teaching them. It's kind of like selling without selling, and the power of saying I'm sorry. Ironically, back to Darren, my friend who I interviewed season 1 about that's what the episode was about. It's like, hey, have you ever said you're sorry before your kids? And I think it's something that us dudes don't talk about that often, but it can be pretty impactful and powerful when you do.
I do apologize, but probably not as much as I should.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely I'm gonna take your advice on that.
Yeah. Now, ideally, dads, if we're apologizing every other hour, it's probably more we other issues we got to deal with, right? But if it's like, once a month or once every couple of weeks.
Right.
Okay. If before we dive into, I want to make sure we learn more about you and how people can find you and the fantastic work you're doing for many sales teams. I can just tell by the way you show up. You bring positive energy and probably help a lot of great companies. But if you were to summarize what we've talked about, Matt, that dads can take from our conversation, that they can maybe things they might have learned that about you or about your journey that they can take to their own life to be maybe improve their leadership in the home. Tell me what are a couple things that maybe might come to mind.
I think one of the things I catch myself doing all the time is I'm on my phone too much. My wife will tell me I'm on my phone too much, and I think just being present with actually and enjoying like what is going on actually probably brings me the most joy versus checking if somebody liked, what I posted on LinkedIn or liked the video that I posted. It's like, does that even matter? and it's like, really, like, what's the stuff that matters? And like when I'm most happiest, it's actually when I'm watching my kids, do something or laughing with my kids. But like the damn phone, distracts me half the time. My wife will remind me of it. And it's like, if you can just be present, with the stuff that matters, you'll actually be a lot happier versus the stuff that you sweat that doesn't even matter.
Spot on. Anything else come to mind?
Just enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a journey.
I gotta tell myself that all the time.
Sometimes we
Because
need our own advice.
a lot, shit goes wrong all the time.
Right.
And I think, how often do you look back on something that you're like, oh, I thought that was really hard at the time, but I'd do anything to go back to that like day.
I think about it often.
One of the best things about Snapchat? One of the best things about Snapchat, and how long have you had it?
I came on to Snapchat in August. That was
Okay.
my kickoff.
Okay.
I'm in orientation still.
So I'm not on as much as I used to be because for whatever reason, our family, like I had everybody's kids, like Snapchat was actually the easiest way to film a video and then send it to somebody. So like kids and like back in probably 2016, 2017, like when my brothers were having kids, like everybody was sending these videos on Snapchat. So I joined it and then salespeople were on it too, so that's kind of like when it was big. Now the coolest part about it is every day, and I can look at my phone right now, it goes back to memories that you've had 5, 6, 7 years ago. And like I always go back and I'm like, oh, boy, I wish I could go back to one day then. Or like I see my daughter like being 1 years old. I'm like, oh, I remember those days. Those days were awesome. And I think it's just to appreciate, you use gratitude a lot, right? But like just to appreciate what you have right now, because you have, no matter who you are, you have more. I always say one of my I used to hike early in the morning. Now with my young son, I never know when he's going to get up. And I do the morning, so I can't really be gone. But we used to hike really early in the morning. If you're ever in Phoenix, you have to come do it with me. But there's a hike where a guy plays Amazing Grace when the sun comes up.
Oh, wow.
And it's like one of the coolest things. So, you go there and no matter what time you get to either that or Camelback Mountain, there's always somebody there that's ahead of you, right? And then you're always beating somebody. And like if you think about life, like who said it? Teddy Roosevelt, I think. But like comparison's the thief of joy. Like, especially with social media, it's like everybody's so caught up in what everybody's doing, and I'm sure you do it and I do it. And it's like,
I used to.
right, I don't do it near as much as I used to, but man, if I could get to that point or that point. But the fact of the matter is like, pay attention and enjoy what you have and what you're doing, and you'll be a lot better off, because guess what? That person that you think has freaking everything, they probably are jealous of like four things you have. so
100%.
so like, I would say the comparison, like in the social media age, like that's the other advice I would get is pay attention to what you're doing, do the best you can, and you'll be a lot happier for it.
Dude, gold. Yeah, I celebrate other people's success.
Yeah.
Don't you know?
Yes.
Celebrate it.
Right.
Um,
What's every salesperson do when somebody else closes a big deal? They're like, oh, they got lucky. They got that deal given to them. Their manager closed that deal. Like, I guarantee if you're happier for them, you will be better off.
abundance, yeah, abundance creates joy. I call it the boomerang mindset: serving others, but don't keep score. You're throwing these boomerangs out, and the more positivity you bring to people, they'll come back to you. And um, I love that, man. That's freaking gold. I think about it in this journey. Like I shared this with, so the guest today. So we're recording on January 14th. The episode this week is a fantastic and talented country music star named Adam Hood, and I saw
Hmm.
him play live at the American Staffing Association. We had this event where I spoke at, and they had this another event, and so he was singing. I'm like, oh my god, his voice is unreal. And so if you like country music, check him out. My favorite song is "Way Too Long." Shout out to you, Adam, for listening. But we talked about that, like, because I was like, how are you not like freaking Garth Brooks? Like, you're amazing. He's like, I used to let that question affect me negatively,
Yeah.
and I used to like being comparable, but now I'm like, it can't. I'm like, and then I felt bad, like, well, dude, I meant that as a compliment. He goes, no, totally took it. And even like in this journey, I'm sure you see it. Like I have friends that are speakers, and they'll put these images up, and I'm in Wichita and Sacramento and da 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 da. I'm like, awesome. I don't want that. I'm so happy. Like I traveled my ass off, not for in corporate. I didn't even want to travel. I travel a lot. Now I'm like, I love like a spot travel here and there, but I don't. I want to be in my own bed with my wife, and my
Right.
kids, and I already got one out of the house. The other one's going to be right behind him before I know it, and I won't. In 5 years, I'm like, I'm so glad I stayed in Topeka and spoke for the freaking Tupperware Association's 43rd annual conference. Like, no thanks. And to each his own. And I think, and it's a really good voice advice for all of us dads is, you know, comparing it just brings negativity to you.
Oh, always,
You
always.
know,
I just had a client that had a baby less than a month ago, and somebody reached out to her, like from a big time company, is trying to recruit her away, and she's texting me Saturday morning about it, and she's like, I'd have to be on the road 150 nights a year. And I'm like, well, that answers your question, because you don't want to do that because you just had that kid. And she goes, God, you know what? You're right. I'm like, yeah, it's that easy. Like, who wants to do that?
yeah. And if that does you want to do, awesome, good on you, go
Yeah,
for it. But
completely. But I know her, and there is no way that she would ever do that. Right. And like, it's so easy to look at like the bigger, shinier things. And I see people take wrong jobs all the time because they're chasing something that they think they want. And then they get there and they're like, oh my God, it was a mistake. Yeah.
tell us how people can find you before we go into the lightning round.
Uh, LinkedIn is the best place to find me. I post 5, 6 times a week on all things sales leadership. The people that I coach is who I was years ago, which I was a top individual contributor. I got promoted into management, got no training, had no idea what I was doing because I had no process. And it took me way too long how to figure out the job. So I coach people on my 6-step process on how to actually create a process to lead your team.
Love it. I love people who do what you do because you walk the walk and you're vulnerable enough to share where you maybe struggled or didn't know what you're doing. And then if you can share that with other sales leaders or other leaders in companies, I think that's the best way to learn from people like you. So we'll make sure that your links and what's the name of your company so people can know about that too.
And MDF coaching and consulting.
Okay, we'll make sure that's linked in the show notes too. We'll make sure that if you do connect with Matt, let him know you heard about him through Quarterback Dadcast. That'd be a good plug just to see if that's how people find you. Matt, it's now time to go into the lightning round, which I go completely random. I'm going to show you the negative hits of taking too many hits in college, not bong hits, but football hits. Your job is to answer these as quickly as you can, and my job is to make you laugh.
Go ahead.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, true or false? Your favorite quarterback is Bernie Kosar.
I got to go true.
God, number 19.
It's a mix between him and I love Baker. We should have never gotten rid of Baker.
Baker Mayfield is a beast. He is a sneaky good quarterback.
I will tell you those two losses to Denver Broncos in '88 and '89 will never be forgotten in Cleveland.
I can still see that. I can still see the drive. I can still see in the end zone the little slant route where he almost takes a divot with his knee.
Yep.
I know exactly what you're talking about. True or false? You started the dog pound.
False.
Okay. If I was to go into your phone right now, what would be one song you listen to that would shock all your clients?
I mean, it's all Taylor Swift.
Swiftie.
My daughter loves Taylor Swift. And I'll tell you something. I saw Taylor Swift in 2007 open up for Brad Paisley. Okay. And I'll never forget that. And I've actually seen Taylor Swift. I haven't seen the new concert, but I've seen her twice. And I've actually always liked her. So I like to say I was ahead of the curve. So that'd probably be surprising to people.
Okay. Tell me the last book you read.
Jesus. I'm reading one right now called, and I'm going to screw up the name of the title. Hold on. But nobody would ever think I'm reading this book. So that's why.
50 Shades of Grey?
What's that?
50 Shades of Grey?
No. A couple funny stories. It's actually called A Journey into Healing. Okay. It's about two homosexual males in Palm Springs in the AIDS, like in the 80s, and talking about their journey through that. But one of my best friend's dad sends me a book every once in a while. And I was sitting there reading this book. Like I read it at 5 a.m. because that's the book that I'm reading right now. And I was like, I can't believe that I'm reading this. Not that there's anything wrong. It's just so different from anything, but he always sends me good and it's really good. So that's what I'm reading right now. I listen to things all the time on Audible. So I switch back and forth, but I love Ryan Holiday. I listen to a lot of him, and I listen to a lot of biographies.
Very cool. If you were to go on vacation right now, you and your wife, where are we going?
Somewhere close.
Okay. Warm or cold?
Warm. And in Arizona, we go to resorts around here just because they're close, and we don't have to pack the kids, and get on a plane to go. But if we were to go somewhere, it's always Napa, where our best friends live, or Cleveland to see family.
There we go. If you had to build your dream foursome, your dream golf foursome, who are the other three people joining you?
My grandfather for sure. Damn, this is a tough question. Johnny Aliberta's got to be in there, who is a friend of mine, who's probably the most fun guy to play golf with that you could. And I'll go Dave Ingram, who was my boss that brought me out here. Because if he wouldn't have brought me out here, I wouldn't have the life that I have. So that's my dream foursome.
There we go. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
Small wins equals big wins.
There we go. Shout out, Drew. Okay, small wins equals big wins is now sold out everywhere. I mean, I tried to pick it up in like 4 airports. No, I can't get it anywhere. I tried to go on Amazon. It says, nope, out. It's just blowing up. So now Netflix is going to make a movie. You're the casting director, Matt. I need to know who's going to star you in this critically acclaimed hit new movie on Netflix.
God. George Clooney.
I like that. I thought you might say? You kind of have a little Fred Savage in you.
Well, I've never heard that one. In my old apartment complex, and I've gotten this plenty of times. People thought I was Roger Federer, which is
Oh,
like
I can see that.
the
Your
most
eyes.
insane thing. Like, and I love Roger Federer. Like, I like watching tennis. But I get Roger Federer a lot.
Anybody say you look like Mike McDonald, the coach of the Seahawks?
No,
I can see that.
no, I haven't. I've never gotten that one.
Do you know who he what he looks like?
No, I actually can't think of where was he before Seattle?
Baltimore D coordinator.
Okay, I can't think of what he looks like. I'll look
Yeah,
it up.
you could pull that one off for sure. Okay, and then last question. Tell me 2 words that would describe your wife.
Phew, man, you're gonna get me in trouble. Um, Fiery for one. Fiery and loyal.
There we go. Lightning round's over. We both giggled. I took us off the rails. You did a good job of staying us in the lanes. This has been a blast getting to know you. It's been a blast learning more about you and your family. It's been a blast just hearing your story and hearing the wisdom you share with us. I hope that everybody else has a page of notes like I do. If this episode has impacted you in any way, I ask you just share it with a friend. If you have a dad that could use a pick me up and you're looking for something to help them with, we have 280 something episodes with other dads where we're sharing vulnerable stories, how we were raised, our gaps, our issues, what we're trying to get better at. So join the community. We'd love to help you. And if you've not taken time to leave us a review on any of the places you consume your podcast, that'd be the biggest favor we can ask as well in 2025. But Matt, it's been a blast getting to know your brother. Appreciate you, and I hope to see you on the golf course here soon in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.